All right. Hi everyone. Happy Halloween. Even though it's tomorrow, it's my favorite holiday. Um, for this presentation, we are going to be talking about post-traumatic stress disorder. I personally have never been diagnosed with this. I have known family and friends who have been and are still working through this disorder. So trauma and stress related disorders. So this is the umbrella that um PTSD is under. Um, sorry. So I want to read this quote. It's from our textbook. I thought it was really good. A stress disorder occurs when an individual has difficulty coping with or adjusting to a recent stressor. Stressors can be any event, either witnessed firsthand, experienced personally, or experienced by a close family member that increases physical or psychological demands on an individual. These events are significant enough that they pose a threat, whether real or imagined, to the individual. I just really like this quote because it kind of like goes over everything. Um, and it hits all of them. Something that I really find interesting that they included was um the threat bit where it's like whether or not like the threat is actually true or not, it's still what they feel. Um, Trauma and stress related disorders continued. So what are the triggers that happen? Some of the major two that I have found, both in textbook and other related sources, are combat, so our soldiers or um, people who work in high stressful situations like cops, firefighters, EMTs, um, ER doctors, stuff like that, and then people who have gone through physical or sexual assault. Other disorders that are in the trauma stress related disorder umbrella are the reactive attachment disorder, disinhibited disorder. I was going to screw that up and I knew it. The one we're going to talk about, post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD, acute stress disorder, and there are a couple of other ones. Um, Usually, some other disorders that happen at the same time or are when having PTSD or any other trauma and stress related disorders are anxiety, disassociation, compulsive, obsessive disorder, and then also I think there was another one. I apologize. I'm a little disorganized today. Um, so as for post-traumatic stress disorder, again, I really like this quote from our textbook. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or more commonly known as PTSD, is identified by the development of psychological, um, physiological, screwed that up, and emotional systems following exposure to a traumatic event. Individuals must have been exposed to a situation where actual or threatened death, sexual violence, or serious injury occurred. Examples of these situations include, but are not limited to, witnessing a traumatic event as it occurred to someone else, learning about a traumatic event that occurred to a family member or close friend, directly experiencing a traumatic event, or being exposed to repeated events where one experiences an adverse event. Victims of child abuse, neglect, ER physicians, and trauma centers. I'm sorry, my cat has come to invade a little bit. Um, um, Yes, we can go on to the next one. So there are four categories of symptoms. I think you have to have either two or three of these symptoms for more than 1 month. Um, so it's the reoccurrent, um, which is like flashbacks, reoccurring nightmares, intrusive, distressing, memories. And then you have the avoidance stimuli. So that's when you try to avoid at all costs, like places or people, maybe memories that you're just trying to avoid overall just to not have to re-experience it or relive it. And then you got negative alterations in cognitive or mood. These are negative emotions, disinterested, social withdrawal. Then you have alterations in arousal or reactivity. This can be angry, outburst, trouble sleeping, and then yep. We're waiting. So prevalence. So there's two sides of it, the combat and the physical and sexual stressors that happen or events. For the combat related trauma, it can be traced back to World War I and was coined shell shock. Soldiers were often seen as weak when they had these flashbacks or couldn't sleep or were traumatized by what they went through and were almost basically told to man up. And so we have now since moved on to post-traumatic stress disorder, and we know it's something that is a real disorder for both victims and those in the military. So we kind of go back to trauma for just a little bit. So for sexual assault, 1 out of 5 women and 1 out of every 71 men will probably experience sexual assault. And that's shocking, especially for the men. One thing that is true in all cases is that a lot of times victims won't come forward when experiencing any of this or have experienced. I know a lot of it has to deal with guilt or feeling ashamed. Then So for the national lifetime prevalence rate for PTSD using DSM-R or DSM-5, it has been that 6.8% for US adults are experiencing the disorder and 5.0% to 8.1% for US adolescents. And that is a scary number that our kids and younger generation are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. And then for PTSD rates for veterans, it's around 30% for the military. So risk factors are being exposed to previous traumatic experiences, particularly during childhood, getting hurt or seeing people hurt or killed, feeling horror, helplessness, or extreme fear, having little or no social support after the event, dealing with extra stress after the event, such as the loss of a loved one, pain or injury, or loss of job or home. There's also drug or alcohol abuse after the fact. And there's also suicide rates that I haven't found the exact number, and it's not good. So going on to treatment options are cognitive behavior therapy, so cognitive restructuring, talking out about the event and making sure it is going that they remember it correctly, because sometimes like events will happen and they will create stories or create their own telling of the event, and you kind of want them to get back to the facts of the event. And it's about talking through it and becoming a safe environment. And then there's exposure therapy. This is done in also another safe environment, exposing them to places or not people, but people related to the event, not true to the event, but related, and getting them almost a little bit desensitized to it. And then there's medication, which is just antidepressants. And then there is my references. So thank you guys for listening to my presentation.